Picture this. You are cruising through the Pacific Northwest. You're expecting those stunning green landscapes and vibrant, busy neighborhoods that Oregon is famous for. But instead, as you roll down street after street, you start noticing something unsettling. There are "for sale" signs everywhere, and they aren't fresh, they're gathering dust. You look at the windows in the evening and house after house is completely dark. This is the new reality in Oregon. We are talking about a state that was, not long ago, the absolute hottest destination for buyers on the West Coast. But right now, it is facing a deep market freeze that surprisingly few people are talking about. Now you might be thinking, okay, maybe it's just a seasonal dip. Winter is always slow. But the data is telling us a much scarier story. This isn't just a slowdown, it's a standstill. We are watching inventory levels spike to historic highs at the exact same moment that buyer demand has completely evaporated. We're talking about thousands of properties just sitting vacant. Talk to agents on the ground and they'll tell you the same thing. Open houses are empty. The bidding wars that defined the last few years? Gone. They've been replaced by silence. From the southern valleys all the way up to the Portland metro area, sellers are slashing prices aggressively, trying to stop the bleeding, but nobody is biting. So, today we are going to take a virtual road trip. We're going to hit the 10 cities where this crisis is the most visible. These are the specific spots where homeowners are finding themselves trapped, where equity is vanishing into thin air, and where the risk indicators for a market crash are flashing red. And you definitely want to stick around because as we get closer to our number one spot, I'm going to show you a city that is practically turning into a ghost town right before our eyes. It is crucial that you understand the mechanics of what is breaking these local economies. Whether you are looking to buy or sell, you need to know this so you don't make a massive financial mistake. Number 10 on our list is Medford. We are starting our journey right down in southern Oregon, just north of the California border. As you pull off Interstate 5, you expect to see a busy regional hub. Lots of commerce, lots of retirees. But take a drive through the actual residential subdivisions, and it is eerily quiet. This city is currently flashing some of the biggest warning signs in the state. Specifically, Medford is facing one of the highest foreclosure risks in Oregon right now. Let's look at the numbers. Recent reports show that 1 in every 2,992 housing units here already has a foreclosure filing. Now, that might sound like a tiny fraction on paper, but in the real estate world, that is significantly higher than the national average. And it's not just foreclosures. When you dig into the listings, you see that inventory has exploded, swelling by nearly 40% year over year. This tells us that sellers who bought at the absolute peak are now realizing they are stuck. They can't get out without taking a massive loss. The root of the problem? The affordability gap. It has widened so much that the average local worker is completely priced out of their own city. To comfortably afford a starter home here, you now need to earn over $80,000 a year. The problem is the local median income is nowhere near that. This disconnect is bleeding into the rental market too. Vacancy rates are creeping up towards 7%. Landlords are struggling to find qualified tenants who can actually pay the rent. For sellers, the clock is ticking loud. Homes are sitting on the market for an average of 55 days. That is almost 2 full months of holding costs, mortgage, taxes, utilities, that sellers have to cover while the house sits empty. Because of this, price cuts are becoming the new normal. In just the last month, nearly 35% of all active listings in Medford had a price reduction. That means more than 1 out of every 3 sellers is admitting, "I overpriced this and nobody wants it." On top of that, the mortgage delinquency rate in the county has ticked up to 2.5%. You can practically feel the financial stress in the air. Behind those perfectly kept lawns, a lot of homeowners are underwater. And remember, this is just the southern tip of the iceberg. As we head north, the numbers only get worse. Number 9 is Eugene. Now, as we keep heading north, we hit a city that is famous for 2 things: its university culture and its world-class track and field heritage. The common wisdom here is that a college town is bulletproof, that you're always safe investing here because of the constant stream of students and faculty. But if you cruise through the neighborhoods right around campus today, you are going to see a very different picture. The idea that this market is insulated? That is a myth that is busting wide open. The rental market here is softening at an alarming rate. The vacancy rate for multifamily units has surged to over 6%. That means a lot of investment properties are sitting completely empty. We're seeing investors who bought here expecting easy passive income now staring down months of negative cash flow. And the single-family market is in just as much trouble. Active inventory has jumped by 28% compared to this time last year. That is a massive supply glut that the current pool of buyers simply cannot absorb. The market stagnation here is real. The median days on market has stretched to nearly 60 days. Think about that, homes that would have sparked a bidding war 2 years ago are now just sitting there, stagnant. The reason is the math. The price-to-rent ratio in Eugene has climbed to over 25. In plain English, it is drastically cheaper to rent a house here than to buy one right now. That removes almost any incentive for first-time buyers to enter the market. Plus, the average home price is still hovering around $480,000, which is totally disconnected from what local jobs actually pay. The data proves buyers have left the building. Mortgage applications in the area have plummeted by 19%. The absorption rate, which measures how fast homes are actually selling, has dropped to levels that signal we are trending dangerously close to a buyer's market. But here's the catch: the buyers are nowhere to be found. As you drive through these streets, notice the signs. Over 12% of the listings you pass have been sitting for more than 90 days without a single offer. The academic charm of Eugene is great, but it can't hide the fact that this housing market is grinding to a painful halt. Number 8, Salem. As you get back on the road and drive into the state capital, you'd probably expect things to be pretty stable here. Usually, a city anchored by government jobs is a safe bet in real estate. But as soon as you start navigating these streets, you can see the cracks in the foundation. Salem is getting hit by a brutal combination of high interest rates and a complete freeze of the move-up buyer market. The result? A massive surge in standing inventory. The number of homes for sale has jumped by 33% year over year. It feels like every homeowner decided to sell at the exact same time, but nobody invited the buyers. The financial strain here is real. To afford a medium-priced home in Salem right now, you need to spend nearly 45% of your income on housing. That is way above the recommended 30% limit. People are being stretched to the breaking point and household budgets are snapping. Because of this pressure, we are seeing a rise in distressed sales. Foreclosure starts in the county have risen by 15% in just the last quarter. You can see the desperation in the listings. Almost 40% of active homes have slashed their asking prices. And if you look at downtown, the picture gets even clearer. With so many government employees working remotely or on hybrid schedules, the demand for housing near the city center has totally collapsed. This has pushed the residential vacancy rate up to nearly 5.8%. That translates to hundreds of empty units sitting across the city. The market is slowing down so much that the months of supply has ballooned to 3.5 months, the highest it's been in a decade. Even the builders are hitting the brakes. Permits for new single-family homes are down by 22%. Construction companies are pulling back because they know they can't sell what they build right now. As we leave the capital, it is obvious, even the seat of government is not immune to this real estate correction. Number 7 takes us off the beaten path to Oak Ridge. Leaving the major highway, you turn east and climb into the foothills of the Cascades. You eventually hit this small mountain town that used to be booming with timber money. But as you drive down the main drag today, it feels like time has stood still, and not in a good way. During the pandemic, this place exploded in popularity. It was the perfect escape for remote workers and vacation home buyers. But that massive boom has officially turned into a bust. The vacancy rate here is absolutely staggering. According to recent census data, nearly 20% of the housing units in this town are currently sitting vacant. We're talking about seasonal cabins that aren't getting booked and second homes that owners simply can't afford to maintain anymore. Because the local economy isn't diversified, the risk of a total market crash here is extremely high. Property values skyrocketed by 60% in just 3 years, but now, they are coming down just as fast. If you look at the recent sales, home values have already dipped by about 8% from their peak. And for sellers, it is a waiting game. The average time a home spends on the market here is over 75 days. That is 2.5 months of absolute silence. The reality on the ground is tough. The poverty rate in this small community is hovering around 26%, which means the local population physically cannot afford to buy the inventory that is sitting there. So, who is selling? It's the out-of-town investors. They are fleeing. The number of non-owner-occupied listings has doubled in the last 12 months. They are trying desperately to offload these assets, but there are no takers. In some months, the absorption rate is effectively zero. Drive around and you will see, for sale, signs that are actually bleached by the sun because they have been up for so long. It is a trap for anyone who bought at the top. The isolation that made Oak Ridge so attractive a few years ago has now become its biggest liability. Number 6 is rhododendron. As you steer your vehicle away from the valley floor and climb higher into the dense forests of the Cascade foothills, the air grows colder, and the atmosphere becomes significantly quieter. You are entering a community that was designed to be a bustling hub for weekend warriors and vacationers. But the vibe right now? It's an unsettling stillness. Instead of seeing driveways packed with cars for weekend getaways, you pass row after row of cabins where the lights are completely out. This mountain retreat is suffering from a severe freeze in transaction activity that is effectively turning it into a dormant zone. The real estate market here relies almost entirely on discretionary spending. And with the broader economy tightening, second home buyers have all but vanished from these winding roads. According to the latest housing reports, active inventory in this specific zip code has swelled by a massive 50% compared to the levels we saw just 2 years ago. Sellers are rushing to put their vacation rentals on the market because the booking income has dried up. But the problem is, there is nobody on the other side of the table to buy them. Consequently, sales volume in this area has plummeted by roughly 45%. That means nearly half of the usual real estate activity has simply evaporated into the mountain air. You can actually see the desperation in the listings. The average time a home spends on the market here has stretched to over 90 days. That is 3 full months of carrying costs that sellers have to pay without any guarantee of a sale. There is another massive financial weight crushing this market: the cost of insurance. Due to the proximity to the national forest, wildfire premiums here have tripled for many property owners, adding hundreds of dollars to the monthly cost of ownership. This sticker shock is causing over 25% of sellers to withdraw their listings from the market entirely because they simply cannot get the price they need to break even. The year-round vacancy rate is climbing as short-term rentals sit empty, no longer generating the cash flow investors promised themselves. It is a beautiful drive through the trees, but for property owners here, the financial picture is nothing short of ugly. Number 5 is Silverton. Descending from the high country, we wind our way back toward the fertile lands of the Willamette Valley to approach a town famous for its stunning botanical gardens and historic charm. From the window of your car, the Victorian-era homes and manicured lawns look inviting. They project an image of old-school stability and wealth. However, do not let those scenic waterfalls and that quaint downtown deceive you. The underlying financial metrics here are painting a picture of a market that is teetering on the edge of a cliff. Analytical models from major real estate data firms have flagged this specific area with a massive 87% risk of a housing market downturn over the next 12 months. That is one of the highest risk scores in the entire region. It signals that current prices are completely detached from economic reality. During the recent housing boom, home values in this town inflated by nearly 55%, a rate that far outpaced the wage growth of the actual population living here. Now that interest rates have risen, that bubble is leaking air rapidly. As you drive past the for sale signs, you should know that about 4% of the mortgaged homes in this community are currently underwater. That means those homeowners owe the bank more money than the property is actually worth, trapping them in a house they literally cannot sell without bringing a check to the closing table. The weakness in demand is evident in the sales-to-list price ratio, which has dropped to 97%. This confirms that the vast majority of homes are selling for significantly less than the asking price. The local economy is also showing cracks that are feeding this crisis. The unemployment rate in the county has crept up to 4.8%, trending higher than the state average and putting serious pressure on mortgage payments. Consequently, inventory is piling up on the streets you are driving through, with a 30% increase in active listings year over year. Most locals simply cannot afford the typical $600,000 price tag, and the remote work wave that brought outsiders here has receded. It creates a perfect storm where sellers are stuck, buyers are absent, and the market is slowly grinding to a painful halt. Number 4, Springfield. Historically, this city has been the blue-collar backbone of the local economy. You might expect a working-class town like this to stay resilient during a downturn because the price points are usually lower, but the exact opposite is happening here. As you navigate through these industrial zones and residential subdivisions, the signs of financial stress are visible on almost every block. Springfield has become ground zero for the affordability crisis. The market here is fundamentally broken for the average resident. Here is why the crash risk score is so alarmingly high. The median home price has doubled in just 7 years. Meanwhile, local wages have remained largely stagnant. This disconnect has created a severe housing cost burden. Data shows that over 50% of renters in the city are now spending more than 30% of their gross income just to keep a roof over their heads. That rental crisis is spilling directly into the sales market. We are witnessing a mass exodus of landlords who can no longer make the math work. This has resulted in a 42% spike in inventory levels compared to last year. On some streets, it feels like every third house has a "for sale" sign in the yard. But despite this flood of supply, buyers physically cannot qualify for the loans needed to buy them. The average days on market has climbed to 48 days. For a market that is supposed to be affordable, entry-level housing, that is exceptionally high. Even worse, we are seeing a rise in shadow inventory. Mortgage delinquency rates in the area are approaching 3%. These are homes where the owners have stopped paying, but the bank hasn't repossessed the property yet. The median sales price has already dipped by 5% in recent months as sellers try to undercut each other, but it hasn't been enough to reignite demand. It is a gridlocked market where the working class is priced out, and sellers are left holding depreciating assets that nobody can afford to buy. Number 3 takes us to Staten. Our journey now leads us deeper into the agricultural heartland of the state. The open fields eventually give way to a small, tight-knit community that has historically relied heavily on farming and manufacturing to survive. But as you cruise down its quiet main streets today, you can physically feel the heavy weight of economic stagnation. According to recent hazard reports from housing analysts, this location currently carries a massive 89% risk of a significant market downturn. That 89% is a staggering figure. It suggests that this area is currently one of the most dangerous places to park your capital. The problem is leverage. The loan-to-value ratios for mortgages here are among the highest in the state, leaving homeowners with very little equity to lean on if prices correct further. And make no mistake, that correction is already underway. The average home value in this town has dropped by nearly 7% over the last 6 months alone. That is a rapid decline that erodes family wealth faster than most people can save it. As you look at the empty driveways, consider this. The foreclosure rate here is currently double the state average. Statistics indicate that 1 in every 1,500 homes is facing some stage of foreclosure proceedings. This wave of distressed property is being driven by a brutal math problem. The down payment required for a median home here now exceeds the entire annual salary of a minimum wage worker. This impossible barrier to entry has killed the first-time buyer market, which is usually the lifeblood of small towns like this. Without new buyers entering the bottom of the funnel, the entire chain freezes. Inventory has swollen by 35% because there is simply no exit strategy for sellers who need to move. Even the rental market is taking a hit, with vacancy rates spiking to 5.5%, leaving landlords with empty units and no income. It is becoming a market where capital goes to die, and the silence on the streets is a testament to that lack of economic activity. Number 2 takes us to Westford. The road trip continues as we follow the river upstream, deep into the dense timberlands, until we reach a tiny community that honestly feels like it is slowly fading into the forest floor. Westford is famous for its iconic red-covered bridge, and visually, it's stunning. But today, it is becoming infamous for a housing market that is practically non-existent. As you drive across that bridge and head into the residential area, the sense of isolation is profound. It's quiet out here, too quiet. This location has been assigned a staggering crash risk score of 93%. That number reflects an almost total lack of liquidity. There are entire months where official records show literally 0 home sales have occurred. Think about that for a second. The market here hasn't just slowed down. In some windows it has completely stopped. The most shocking stat you need to know? The vacancy rate. Recent census data analysis suggests that nearly 22% of the housing stock here is vacant. That means more than 1 in every 5 homes you pass is just sitting there empty, collecting dust and pine needles. Some of these are older cabins falling into disrepair, sure. But many are decent homes that simply cannot find a buyer at any price. The average days on market can easily stretch to over 100 days, forcing frustrated sellers to eventually just give up and delist their homes. The financials don't help either. The local tax burden is disproportionately high relative to the limited services you get out here, which drives away the retirees who might otherwise want that quiet life in the woods. Despite the complete absence of demand, the median list price remains stubbornly disconnected from reality, often hovering over $400,000. You will see price cuts of 10% or more on the active listings, but they still sit unsold. Hidden behind closed doors, the mortgage delinquency rate is estimated to be over 3%. It is a beautiful, scenic location, but make no mistake, it is trapped in a downward economic spiral, serving as a stark warning of what happens when a town simply runs out of people. And finally, we merge back onto the main interstate to arrive at our number 1 destination, Woodburn. Now, you would think that being located directly along the primary transportation corridor of the state would save a housing market. But in Woodburn, that location has actually accelerated the crash. As we drive through town, understand that we are now looking at the single highest concentration of negative real estate indicators in the entire state. Data models currently give this area a 95% probability of a major price correction. In the world of statistics, that is as close to a guarantee as you are ever going to get. Look to your left and right, it seems like "for sale" signs are popping up on every other lawn. The hard data backs this up. Inventory here has exploded, increasing by a massive 55% year over year. This flood of supply is overwhelming the market because the commuter math simply doesn't add up anymore. With interest rates staying high and gas prices fluctuating, living here and driving into the big city is no longer the affordable hack it used to be. The result? Homes are sitting completely empty. The vacancy rate for rental units is pushing toward 8%, forcing desperate landlords to offer months of free rent just to get a warm body through the door. For sellers, the pain is acute. The percentage of homes selling below their initial list price has reached nearly 60%. That means the majority of people selling right now are taking a serious financial haircut just to get out. Even worse, the foreclosure rate here is the highest on our entire road trip, with 1 in every 1,100 homes facing repossession by the bank. Add in an unemployment rate that is significantly higher than the national average, and you have a perfect storm that has turned this busy highway town into the epicenter of the empty home crisis. As we finish this drive through Oregon, the reality is undeniable. We aren't looking at a few isolated incidents here. We are witnessing a systemic freezing of the housing market across the entire state. From major hubs like Medford all the way to small towns like Westford, the pattern is identical: soaring inventory, vanishing buyers, and homes sitting empty for months. This is a correction that is just getting started. If you found this analysis helpful, please help others see this data by hitting that like button and sharing this video with anyone interested in the real estate market. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next deep dive into the US housing economy. Also, drop a comment below. Tell me which state you want us to drive through next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.